Hello, my name is Keith Kelly with Catholic Charities with the Diocese of Kansas City and St. Joseph. Welcome to this presentation, Adapting to Higher Prices. We're now in a period of high prices. Inflation began in November of 2020. It really started to increase in the spring, and now in October 2021. Per this chart, inflation is at 6.2%. How is inflation calculated? The inflation rate is calculated by taking the consumer price index of one period and subtracting that by the consumer price index of the previous period divided by the consumer price index of the previous period times 100. The consumer price index itself is an average of prices that are associated with a market basket of consumer goods and services. These indices are available for the United States and various geographic regions of the United States. The consumer price index is a weighted average, therefore, of a variety of goods and services that households purchase. Behind the consumer price index is the producer price index, which is a measure of goods and services producers pay in producing the products that they sell to households, the goods and services they sell to households, in addition to the short-term effects of supply and demand. There have been 6 periods of inflation, which the inflation rate exceeded 5% since World War II. These periods have ranged in duration from 1 year to in the 70s going into 1980. They're 8.5 years. Sometimes for some years the inflation rate was pretty high, like 13% or 18%. The current inflation rate, as we noted, started, creeping up in November and increased, and we're still in the midst of that. The recent prices have been due to a number of things, basically related to the short-term dynamics of supply and demand. There's increased economic activity, and there was a much needed stimulus that was put money into the economy. Related to that, there was an increase in consumer demand as consumers started back from, with the reopening of the economy and such, consumer demand for goods increased. However, this was also met by supply chain interruptions. A good example of the supply chain interruptions is that due to the pandemic, there were bottlenecks in various parts along the way in the supply chain that results in the production of goods, and there were also business interruptions. The cost of a business slowing down, and in the cost of a business getting ramped back up, they might have sold some of their stock, or they might have sold some items, and now they have to repurchase some items. A good example of that is the rental car industry. So the dynamics of supply and demand that we have faced for the current inflation cycle is present, and it's expected to be in effect for quite some time. There's some sort of discussion of it being transitory. There's others that are saying, well, this is structural, and there's going to be other factors that relate to higher prices in the future. Generally, though, the inflation we experience now is projected to decline. However, it's also anticipated that it will be several months that we will be facing inflationary prices, and the progression of that is exactly the progression of it is unknown. The real concern of this presentation, however, is we have higher prices and what to do about it. Prices are rising on a number of items, and some more than others. And in an environment of raising prices, are there things that we can do to help counteract to or to adapt to the environment of increasing prices? As it is, this is something that is relevant to general practices of living and budgeting anyway. However, it becomes more prominent during a period of higher prices. We can start by looking at some food and grocery discussion and looking at what to buy. Economists talk about complementary goods such as salt and pepper, and substitute goods such as dairy milk versus almond milk, or in the area of poultry, chicken versus turkey, or something of that nature. And one of the things to realize is that there's some variation in prices among some of the substitute goods. I think the question that we have is, what less expensive products can I buy instead of another product and still practice healthy eating? And also, do I really need this complementary good when I buy something that may be more expensive, or are there other ways that I might cook or prepare food? And along with that, or what are some creative and appetizing recipes that use less expensive foods? And how can I change my food practices? How can I look at less ready-made food and more prepared food? And how does that fit into my schedule? And how does that fit into my lifestyle? And in an environment of raising prices, and also with a limited budget from time to time that people might experience, these are questions that are good to ask. Another thing to consider with respect to food is some grocery store chains are less expensive than others. Also, there's quite a prominence of buying online anymore for the convenience of it, and some pricing advantages that online purchases may afford. However, studies show that buying groceries online is more expensive. There's also the age-old practice of coupons, and I've included in this slide some of the things about do's and don'ts regarding coupons and some tips regarding that. And also, one feature is buying in bulk for frequently used items. This can be at more like wholesale places. However, I would mention that you might ask around, ask friends, ask relatives about purchases where they can obtain groceries that are available in bulk at very reasonable prices. And that's another strategy in terms of looking at where to buy and how to buy food. Another good advice, I think, for looking at how to review spending and expenditures that you face in terms of rising prices and budget constraints is reviewing bills. One of the things is, are there unnecessary charges on my bill? Several years ago, I started to review some of my bills, and I noticed that there was a charge placed on my phone bill for the maintenance of internal lines within my house. That was back when I had a landline. And I called, and that was taken off. And in further review of a bill, there was a charge, and I called and I asked the customer service representative what that charge was about. They couldn't tell me, so I thought, I said, well, if I don't know and you don't know, does it need to be on there? And that was taken off. I mean, those sorts of things do happen. What are the interest rates and charges on my accounts? If I have different accounts, some rates may be markedly lower. Interest rates may be quite lower than on other accounts for charge accounts, and that is something to keep in mind and be aware of. And you can see that on your bill and what the finance charges are and what the rates are. Another thing is, are there plans available to me that are less expensive and still meet my needs? An example of that is I had signed up for a discount plan, for example, for internet services, and the plan expired, and the new bill came out, and it was $70 higher for this other plan than what I had been paying. So I called the company and explained to them the situation. And I mentioned that I don't know that I really need this new plan with increased broadband and other features. And I was put back on the plan that was $70 less expensive. And to this day, and this has been quite a while now, but to this day, I cannot tell you what the benefits of one plan are over the other in terms of my daily use of the internet services that I have. So that's something to really look at and to review your bills and be aware of what's on your bills. Going along with that is make a record of schedule plan changes and what plans are available, and be sure to ask what discounts are available. What sort of discounts do you offer? What sort of plans are less expensive? And it may very well be that a plan that is considerably less expensive for your own needs will do exactly the same thing for you as a more expensive plan. One of the things to keep in mind is that controlling expenses and looking at your expenses involves a little bit of planning and thought. Consider the benefits of deferring purchases. Consider seasonal sales and use of strategic shopping. There may be strategic shopping advantages in terms of things coming in groups, or there may be seasonal sales on some items. Plan on looking for advantages in meal planning and food cost. A lot of that is really a factor of planning for that, and consider purchases that you may save on money spent, such as you might do more food preparation in bulk. Instead of eating meals out, you might invest in a lunchbox. Home and portable food storage that will go along with that, and that can be something that results in a lot of savings. Planning on travel and travel expenses and how to get the most out of the mile travel for both long and short distances, and also have a budget that shows your expenses and the fixed expenses, and also the estimated variable expenses for each category. And when you look at that, you can then say, how can I reduce this expense? So you have it there in black and white, so to speak. And that becomes something that you can actually bring to your attention and ask the question about what is this expense, and is it needed, and if it's needed, how can I minimize this expense? Also, something as simple as monitoring heat and cooling settings, and you can save 10% over a year's time by adjusting the temperature in your house 7 to 10 degrees, making it that much warmer in the summer, that much cooler in the winter at periods of time that you may be gone. And say this is for someone that's working an 8-hour day. And you can do that, and there's considerable amount of savings for that. Another thing to review are your personal finances. If you have retirement accounts, for example, it might be a good idea to look at what the rate of return is on each type of investment and how that currently stacks up with the rate of inflation. Also, another thing to think about is what sort of institutions offer the best rates. There are banks and credit unions, and at times the financial institutions will offer certain types of rates or options, and it's a good idea to consider these as well. So this is a process of really developing some priorities and developing some strategies. How much should I save? How much debt should I be paying off if I have debt? What does it cost me to live? And right now, as you might have noticed in the news, a lot of people are asking, what am I earning on the job? Am I working the right job? And what job should I consider? There are a lot of opportunities for looking at career paths that people are now exploring and asking these questions. And certainly in a time of inflation, this is a good time to ask those questions and consider career development. And Catholic Charities also offers assistance with career development planning. Finally, I would like to say that feel free to utilize Catholic Charities as a resource. We have some resources that we can provide directly ourselves, and we also can refer to other resources that would be available to you. We can assist with career planning, with employment, and with financial literacy. And included here are the addresses and telephone numbers of our offices, and feel free to give us a call. Thank you.